Hi. The Lakers have narrowed their coaching search down to 3 or 2 candidates, depending on which news source you trust. And Clayton Kershaw's return from an injury has suffered a setback. But at least at this point, the Dodgers are still in good shape. Good morning. I'm James. This is your daily dose of sports and snark for the greatest sports city in the world, Los Angeles. This is Faithful Angelenos. It is May 21st, 2022. I am at the Get the Hell Out of Nebraska studios on the east side of Omaha, Nebraska, 1 block away from the Omaha airport. It's a beautiful thing. We added a bunch of new subscribers yesterday. Thank you for joining in. If you like the content that we've been putting out for the last 3 months, clickety-clack the like button. Clickety-clack the subscribe button. There's a notifications bell. You should hit that. We put out new videos between 9 and 10 a.m. every day. It'll let you know it's there. Sharing is caring. Let people know we exist. And yes, comment. Because after all, one of the reasons I did this channel was to actually talk sports. I ain't getting rich off of YouTube. I don't even know anybody who does. Now, before we get to the main topic of the day, Lakers basketball and their coaching search, let's go through the scoreboard and the notes from around LA. The Dodgers. Hey, you remember last week how, oh my God, we just got crushed by Philadelphia. The sky is falling. Yeah. Dodgers went into Philly and took care of business 4-1 yesterday. Julio Urias, 5 shutout innings with 5 strikeouts. Freddie Freeman knocks in 2 runs, scores a couple of more as well. The Dodgers have won 6 consecutive games. They are up a 1.5 game lead in the NL West. On the opposite end of the spectrum, the Sparks have lost their 3rd consecutive game in the WNBA. Seattle took care of them 83-80. Meanwhile, today, the Dodgers are going to play the Phillies at 1 o'clock. That is going to be a bullpen game. We were talking about it earlier this week because of the fact that the Dodgers have had to juggle their rotation. This is going to be a bullpen game most likely. They'll face the Phillies. Aaron Nola, 1-4. We'll counterpunch for them. That's at 1 p.m. In the meantime, in MLS, LAFC is going to play Columbus. That's an early game, probably 10:30 a.m. So, since we started talking about the Dodgers, what do you say we keep going? Clayton Kershaw was supposed to throw off of a mound Wednesday as part of his rehab assignment. He didn't. And now there is not even a timetable set for his return. Now, let's be real. If you've been a Dodger fan for the last couple of years, this has been par for the course with Clayton. So it's one of those things. They're just going to have to tough it out. Meanwhile, one of the things that they've done is they have signed a former relief pitcher to a minor league contract, Pedro Baez. You might remember him. Yeah, he left the Dodgers, joined Houston. He was cut in April. Here's the problem with the signing. He has lost his fastball. It's failing him. It's now below 90 miles an hour. Maybe he can find it. Maybe he can't. I will say one of the things that even though the Dodgers are in first place, though, this is just me randomly talking. One of the things I've noticed about the Dodgers this year, aside from the pitching, they're lacking their trademark versatility in the lineup. Chris Taylor is a prime example. Now, I'm not saying he sucks. No. What I'm saying is prior to this year, he was one of about 2 or 3 players you could line up anywhere, like a Max Muncy, for example. You would see Taylor and Muncy, you'd see Taylor at second base or center or left or, even at first. Now he is their everyday left fielder. And Muncy doesn't play first base now because that's Freddie Freeman's job, okay? And Freeman ain't moving anywhere. He doesn't have that mobility. Now, the problem with that, with the lack of the freedom to move around in the lineup or move around in there, is that this means that their lineup every so often isn't going to be as strong. The versatility is one of the things that made the Dodgers the Dodgers. That's just me anyway. I have a question for you Rams fans out there. Have you ever asked yourself, why didn't they make a stronger play to keep Von Miller? Is it possible that they believed all along in Justin Hollins? Is it? Now look, not that Justin Hollins is a game changer at outside linebacker, but last year he was already off to a great start. He was on track for career highs, both in solo tackles and sacks. Not that he was on Von Miller's level. But then, of course, he injured his chest. He had pectoral surgery, right? And as a result, the Rams had a hole, Von Miller was available, and they overpaid, which was fine, went to the Super Bowl. So maybe the reason that they went harder to get Bobby Wagner was because they trusted what they had in Justin Hollins. Is that possible? You give me an idea of what you think. Maybe you think they should have kept Von Miller at all costs. Also, safety Justin Fuller, he is expecting to be a starter again this year. If you remember, he was their starting safety toward the end of the regular season. He injured his ankle. And as a result, as we all know, LA just sat there and pulled Eric Weddle off of a rec league basketball league and went to the bowl anyway. I really wanted to sneak in some notes about the Kings. We're going to save that. I really want to talk about the Lakers. Yesterday, depending on which source you believe, the Lakers are down to a final 3 for their coaching search. And we talked about that earlier this week. They had like 8 candidates at the time. The final 3, and this is if you believe Shams Charania of The Athletic, I hope I pronounced his name right, Portland's Terry Stotts, or former Portland head coach Terry Stotts, Golden State assistant Kenny Atkinson, and Bucks assistant Darvin Ham. Now, if you, on the other hand, you don't believe The Athletic and you prefer ESPN's Adrian Wojnarowski, it's a final 2. That would be Stotts and Ham. Okay? All 3 of them, by the way, not only are they finalists for the Lakers position, they are also said to be finalists for the opening with the Charlotte Hornets. But we'll approach that at another time. So we had a tape that I released earlier this week where I basically broke down all the 8 candidates and I had my own personal rankings as to who I would prefer. Of the 3 that are remaining, I'd prefer Ham. Hell, I just had breakfast. I preferred Ham then too. But seriously, folks, having said that, I don't want to just completely crap on Terry Stotts, okay? I don't think it's fair to call him a retread, despite the fact that he was previously Portland's head coach. Because if you call somebody a retread coach, that suggests that his ideas are old, they're tired, they're played out. I don't think that's the case with Terry Stotts. I think he's very creative when it comes to making offensive plays happen. The problem is that he's so good at offense that defense is an afterthought. The Portland Trail Blazers rarely played defense under Terry Stotts' leadership. So yeah, if I were to sit there and go, you know what, of the 3, I'd prefer Ham. I mean, I mentioned the reasons why on the clip that I posted earlier this week, but I'll just rehash a couple of the quick notes. He is a former Lakers assistant. Of the final alleged 3 finalists, he's the only one that was an NBA player. And let's be real, I think we all agree that players tend to respond to former players better. He also won titles not only as a player, but as an assistant coach with Milwaukee, which also suggests that he can handle stars such as Giannis. Maybe he can do the same with LeBron. And by the way, when he decided to get into coaching, he learned under Greg Popovich and Mike Budenholzer. These are all terrific reasons to think that Darvin Ham can be the guy. Having said that, I was reading all these stories about how the process has been going. And it's just not good. I mean, we have to be real with ourselves. This just isn't good. Look, I was reading that the second round of interviews for this final 2 or final 3 could take place in front of Jeannie Buss, Rob Pelinka, Phil Jackson, Magic Johnson, Kurt Rambis, and Kurt Rambis' wife. What? What is this? The glamour franchise of the NBA or a craptacular episode of Gilligan's Island? The power forward and his wife. What are we talking about? I mean, you remember the good old days? One of the things that made the Lakers when Dr. Jerry Buss was still alive, Jerry Buss knew that he didn't know basketball. He just wanted to basically be the NBA's version of Hugh Hefner. So he basically goes to Jerry West and says, I trust you. You figure it out. And he did. But this whole thing of let's just grab about a dozen people who played the game and have them argue it over. Anybody else ever heard of the phrase, too many cooks spoiling the broth? And they all have their own agendas, because they all came from different eras of the game. Phil Jackson has an entirely separate agenda from Magic Johnson. Magic Johnson, who probably thinks he could still play now, frankly. The guy beat HIV, for Pete's sakes. It wouldn't surprise me if he thinks he's immortal. His agenda is entirely different than Kurt Rambis. And Rob Pelinka's in it. They all have different agendas. You have that many different agendas going at each other. How do you come out with one unified voice? It doesn't work that way. So I have deep concerns, even if Ham gets the job, about where this franchise is going. Now, I will say this, just to put a nice big bow on everything, okay? One of the things that the coach, whoever this person is, has to do is obviously has to forge a good relationship with LeBron James. Originally, we all thought, from what we had been reading, that that was going to be former Warriors coach and current broadcaster Mark Jackson. But of all the people we've heard that are in the inner sanctum, LeBron James isn't one of them. However, an unnamed source told the Belcher Report, or to some people, Bleacher, whatever, Belcher Report. Somebody told the Belcher Report, a source, that Ham, quote, is the guy LeBron wants, unquote. So, I don't want to make a prediction, because we've heard a lot of rumors and innuendo, things that may or may not be true about the Lakers. But if it is Ham, and if these stories are true, he at least has a fighting chance to turn the Lakers into something. It is possible that despite the fact that Frank Vogel got him a world title, it is possible that 2 years later they tuned him out. Who am I to know about today's generation? I'm 54. Yikes, I'm 54. Anyway, those are my thoughts about it. I know there are Laker fans out there, even though the clips that I post, the more popular ones are about USC, the Chargers, and the Rams. I know there are Laker fans out there. You tell me, out of all the things you've seen, who do you prefer as the head coach? Now, if you enjoyed today's episode, I'm glad. Thank you. I invite you to please like and subscribe to Faithful Angelenos. We produce clips every day talking about LA sports. Thank you for watching. I'm going to go home to my wife. Faithful Angelenos is a Quian Corte El Queso production. Have a great day. Bye-bye.